I am Steve Jones from SQL Server Central and Redgate Software, and this is my Friday Flyway tips on state-based deployments in Flyway. So this is kind of a new feature we've created, and I want to demonstrate it to you. So I'm going to create 3 databases here, and then I'm going to put some tables in the first one, in the dev database. So let's run that, and if we refresh this, we'll see that dev has a few tables, but QA does not. Okay, so you can see that we've got these tables here, we've got nothing here. So I'm going to go into Flyway Desktop. And in here, I'm going to create a new project. And so I'm going to say this is just Flyway State, because that's what I need to do. I'll call it State. I've got a folder here already, which doesn't exist anymore because I was testing. So we'll create that and we'll say Flyway State. Ta-da, we'll select that SQL Server, and you'll notice here in my deployment source, I can do a schema model instead of migrations, this is kind of the SQL compare model here, and this is the Flyway model. So we're going to do SQL compare. We're going to create this project. And once we do this, what it'll do is it'll do the normal stuff. I said it needs to create a database here or link to a database. So let's do this first one here. And we'll flip back here. We're going to call it this actually database name. And this is my instance, trust server certificate. I'm going to test and save because that should be valid. That's all the things. Yep. Tested correctly. So it's now saving. And now what it's doing is looking at all the objects in my schema, and it's going to find them. And so these were all the objects that were in this script here. If we look down here, let's get rid of the results. So all those objects were there, so we'll save all these. And what this does is this will write it out to the schema model. So if I were to look at this in this folder, right, Flyway State, where I did this is where it started. The schema model is here, and in the tables area, we've written out these tables. And so this is just the SQL code for those tables. Now, of course, I should commit this stuff to version control. I haven't, in fact, done that, but let's just initialize this. We'll just commit everything, and we'll say here, initial commit. Right, always a good habit to save your code in version control. In this case, I don't have a remote, but that's okay. So there's nothing in my database that isn't here. If I refresh this, it'll check the database, it'll look at the file system, and it'll find what's there. Great. So far, this is just like the migrations method. Here's where things get different, is I have a deployment method. So I don't want to deploy to my dev database because things are there. So we'll configure a new database. In this case, we'll grab this name. And we'll shrink that, and we'll put it here, and we'll put it here. And this is SQL 2022. Trust server certificate. We'll save this. It'll test correctly, hopefully. It does. And now what it's doing is it's selected this target one, which is my QA database. So it'll confirm that database. You can see it's listed here. I've got both of them there. And so now what it's doing is it's saying what hasn't been deployed. Well, some stuff hasn't been deployed. I'm going to pick one object and I'll say deploy. And when I do this, what it's going to actually do is generate the script to make that deployment change. So you can see here, it's generated a script just like SQL compare would. I see my table here. It's added the primary key constraint. I can execute this in a transaction or not in a transaction, copy to clipboard, or deploy it, which is what I'm going to do. We get a confirmation dialog, and then this will actually run that deployment. And now what we'll see is in this QA database, my customers table has moved over there. And if I look in my list of items in the deploy area, customers is no longer here because it's been deployed. It's no longer one of the objects that needs to be deployed. So this has been a quick look at using Flyway for state-based deployments. It might be easier than SQL compare for some of you if you want to do that. So check out the Flyway system and let me know what you think. I'm Steve Jones for Redgate Software.